The envelope opened in Los Angeles. And the winner is
And now,
Annie
the award
Hall.
for Best Director.
Applause
Murmurs of
erupted through the Dorothy
anticipation.
Chandler Pavilion. 3,000 people in evening gowns and tuxedos rose to their feet. The camera panned to the designated seat, searching for Woody Allen. But the seat was empty. Because at that exact moment, 3,000 miles away in Manhattan, Woody was playing clarinet in a smoky basement jazz club, refusing the biggest honor of his career for something that actually mattered to him. It was April 3, 1978, the night Hollywood celebrated excellence in filmmaking, the night Annie Hall swept the Academy Awards, winning Best Picture, Best Director, Best Actress, Best Original Screenplay. The night that should have been Woody Allen's triumphant arrival as a serious artist, and the night he chose to be exactly where he was every Monday, making music with people who had never cared about his movies. Michael's Pub on East 55th Street, a narrow staircase leading to a basement room that held maybe 80 people. Dark wood paneling, small tables crowded together. The New Orleans Jazz Band setting up instruments like they did every Monday night, preparing for a regular gig that happened to coincide with the most important evening in American cinema. Woody arrived at 7:30, carrying his clarinet case, wearing what he always wore: casual slacks, a work shirt, nothing special. The club manager nodded at him. The other musicians greeted him the same way they always did. Nobody mentioned the Oscars. This was Monday. Woody played clarinet on Mondays. That was the arrangement. But the real story had never been only about one night. Woody Allen had hated Hollywood from his first encounter with it. The phoniness, the self-congratulation, the worship of commercial success disguised as artistic merit. He had grown up in Brooklyn, survived through writing jokes and making small films that mattered to him. When Hollywood started paying attention after Annie Hall, his instinct was to run. The film itself had been almost accidental. Not a grand statement, but an honest exploration of a relationship that failed despite love. Autobiographical in ways that made Woody uncomfortable. Diane Keaton playing a version of herself. Woody playing a version of himself. The camera acknowledging its own presence. Structure that fragmented time. Humor that came from recognition rather than setup and punchline. It was personal, intimate, specific. Everything Hollywood usually avoided. And somehow, inexplicably, it connected with millions of people. The film opened in April 1977 and became a cultural phenomenon. Not a blockbuster, but something else. A movie that people talked about, quoted, returned to see multiple times. Critics called it groundbreaking. Audiences saw themselves in it. Suddenly, Woody Allen was not just a comedian who made movies. He was an important filmmaker. The studio executives smelled Oscar. United Artists began campaigning, spending money on advertisements in trade publications, hosting screenings for Academy voters. Woody wanted nothing to do with it. "The film exists," he said. "It doesn't need prizes." But Hollywood loved prizes. Prizes meant validation, box office bumps, legacy. As fall turned to winter and award season accelerated, Annie Hall accumulated nominations. Golden Globes, Directors Guild, Writers Guild, and finally, in February 1978, 9 Academy Award nominations, including the big ones: Picture, Director, Actor, Actress, Screenplay. Woody's response to the nominations was to book a gig. Michael's Pub, every Monday night, playing clarinet with the New Orleans Jazz Band. It was something he had done periodically before, but now he made it a commitment, a regular slot, a ritual that mattered more than any award ceremony, because for Woody, music was where honesty lived. You could not fake playing jazz in front of people who knew music. You either hit the notes or you didn't. The audience at Michael's pub did not care about his movies. They came for the music. If he played badly, they would notice. If he played well, they appreciated it. There was no pretense, no self-congratulation, no speeches about the importance of art. Just music. Just the thing itself. The weeks leading to the Oscars were surreal. Everyone assumed Woody would attend. The studio pleaded. His agent explained how important it was for his career. Friends told him he should go, that refusing was insulting to the people who had worked on the film. But Woody had made his decision. Monday, April 3rd, was a Monday. He played at Michael's pub on Mondays. The Oscars happened to be scheduled the same night. That was unfortunate timing, but it did not change his plans. "I have a gig," he told anyone who asked, as if that explained everything. And in a way, it did. The decision was not about arrogance or contempt. It was about values, about what actually mattered versus what society said should matter. Hollywood celebrated success with spectacle. Woody celebrated creation with showing up every week to play music in a basement club where nobody cared if he was famous. That contrast defined everything. The morning of April 3rd, Los Angeles was frantic with Oscar preparation. Hairstylists and makeup artists booked solid, limousines reserved, designers lending gowns to actresses, the machinery of celebration operating at full capacity. In Manhattan, Woody woke up in his apartment, had breakfast, worked on a screenplay for a few hours. In the afternoon, he practiced clarinet. The same routine as any Monday. By evening, he was walking to Michael's pub, instrument case in hand, thinking about the set list. The club manager pulled him aside. "You know the Oscars are tonight, right? Your film is nominated for everything." "I know," Woody said. "What time do we start?" At 8 o'clock, the Academy Awards ceremony began in Los Angeles. At the same time, the New Orleans Jazz Band started their first set at Michael's pub. Woody stood with the other musicians, Mike, Eddie, Johnny, playing "Just a Closer Walk with Thee," a traditional gospel tune arranged for jazz. The audience at Michael's pub was maybe 60 people, locals, jazz enthusiasts, a few tourists who had stumbled in. Most did not know or care that one of the clarinet players was nominated for 4 Academy Awards that night. They just wanted to hear good music. In Los Angeles, the ceremony progressed through technical awards, costume design, sound, film editing. Annie Hall was not winning everything, but the momentum was building. The bigger awards came later. At Michael's pub, the band played Basin Street Blues. Woody took a solo, his clarinet weaving through the melody. He was not a great player, competent but not exceptional. The other musicians were better, but that was part of why he loved it. In this room, he was just another player trying to keep up. In Los Angeles, Best Supporting Actor was announced. Jason Robards for Julia, not Annie Hall. The audience applauded politely. At Michael's pub, the first set ended. Woody put his clarinet down, ordered a drink at the bar. The club manager approached again. "They're probably announcing your awards soon," he said, gesturing to a small television in the corner, sound off. Woody glanced at the screen, saw the familiar Oscar ceremony staging, looked away. "We have another set," he said. In Los Angeles, Best Actress was announced. And the winner is Diane Keaton, Annie Hall. The camera found her in the audience, genuinely surprised and emotional. She walked to the stage, accepted the Oscar, gave a brief thank you speech. The camera panned to the empty seat next to her, where Woody should have been sitting. At Michael's pub, the second set began. When the Saints Go Marching In, a New Orleans funeral march. Music that acknowledged death and celebrated life simultaneously. The clarinet section moving together, Woody's part supporting rather than leading. In Los Angeles, Best Director was next. The presenters opened the envelope. Woody Allen, Annie Hall. Applause. Camera to the empty seat. Jane Fonda accepting on his behalf, reading a brief statement Woody had prepared. I'm sorry I can't be here tonight. I have a prior commitment. A prior commitment to play clarinet in a jazz club. Hollywood did not know whether to be insulted or charmed. At Michael's pub, someone told Woody between songs that he had won. He nodded, picked up his clarinet, waited for the next tune to start. In Los Angeles, the biggest award remained. Best Picture. 5 nominees. The envelope opened. Annie Hall. The producers walked to the stage. More camera shots of the empty seat. More confusion about where Woody Allen actually was. At Michael's pub, the second set continued. No announcement, no interruption, just the music. The people who were there that night would remember it differently than the people watching the Oscars. For Hollywood, it was the night Woody Allen snubbed them. For the audience at Michael's pub, it was just another Monday. The clarinet player was decent. The band was tight. The music was good. That difference between how Hollywood saw it and how Woody experienced it was the entire point. When the gig ended around 11, Woody packed up his clarinet, said goodbye to the other musicians, walked home through Manhattan streets. He did not turn on the television to watch Oscar coverage, did not call anyone to ask what had been said about his absence. Just went to sleep. Because tomorrow he would wake up and write, which was what actually mattered. The next morning, the story was everywhere. Woody Allen skips Oscars. Best Director refuses to attend his own triumph. Annie Hall sweeps Academy Awards, but Allen plays jazz instead. The reactions were mixed. Some people saw it as the ultimate act of artistic integrity, choosing authentic experience over empty ceremony. Others saw it as disrespectful, ungrateful, arrogant. Woody did not respond to either interpretation. He had done what felt right to him. The Oscars were about celebrating success. Monday nights at Michael's pub were about doing the work. He valued the work more than the celebration. That was all. But the decision resonated beyond Woody himself. It became a story people told about values, about refusing to let others define what success should mean, about staying true to your own priorities, even when the entire world was watching and judging. In a culture that worships fame and validates people through awards and recognition, Woody's empty Oscar seat was a quiet revolution. It said, maybe the prize does not matter as much as you think. Maybe showing up for the ordinary Monday ritual is more valuable than the extraordinary spotlight moment. The irony was that his refusal made him more famous. By rejecting Hollywood's validation, he became a symbol of authenticity. People who had never seen Annie Hall knew about the director who skipped his own Oscars to play clarinet in a jazz club. But Woody continued showing up at Michael's pub every Monday. For years. Then decades. Long after Annie Hall. Through subsequent films, some successful, some not. Through personal controversies and career ups and downs, Monday nights remained constant. Because that was the lesson the empty seat taught. Consistency matters more than celebration. Ritual matters more than recognition. Doing the thing you love with people who care about the work itself, that matters more than any award. Hollywood never quite forgave him. At subsequent Oscar ceremonies, even when Woody's films were nominated, the expectation was that he would not attend, and he rarely did. The pattern established that night in 1978 became his permanent stance. Make the work. Let others judge it. Keep showing up for what actually matters. Critics would debate for years whether Woody's refusal was admirable or contemptuous, whether it showed integrity or arrogance. But those debates missed the point. It was not about the Oscars. It was about Monday nights. It was about understanding that fame is empty if it disconnects you from the things that made you want to create in the first place. That success measured by Hollywood standards is meaningless if it requires abandoning your actual life. That the ritual of showing up, doing the work, being part of something real, that is where meaning lives. Woody Allen won 4 Academy Awards the night he refused to collect them. Best Picture, Best Director, Best Actress for his collaborator Diane Keaton, Best Original Screenplay. A sweep. The kind of validation most filmmakers dream about their entire careers. And he was playing When the Saints Go Marching In a basement club where most people did not know his movies existed. Years later, asked about that night, Woody was characteristically dismissive. "I had a gig," he said. "Monday night gig. What was I supposed to do? Cancel?" But the statement was more profound than it appeared. What was he supposed to do? Choose the extraordinary moment over the ordinary commitment? Value spectacle over substance? Let Hollywood's definition of success override his own priorities? The empty Oscar seat answered those questions. It said, no. Your rituals matter. Your commitments matter. Your ordinary Monday nights matter more than their extraordinary ceremony. Fame is a trap if you let it change who you are and what you value. The people at Michael's Pub that night got to be part of something more memorable than any Oscar ceremony. They witnessed someone choosing authenticity over celebration, choosing music over recognition, choosing to be exactly who he was rather than who everyone expected him to become. That was Woody's gift to himself and to anyone paying attention. The understanding that you do not have to accept anyone else's definition of success. That the most important person to stay true to is yourself. That an ordinary Monday doing what you love beats an extraordinary spotlight moment that requires you to be someone you are not. The Academy Awards are still given every year. The ceremony still happens. Stars still wear expensive clothes and give speeches. But in Hollywood history, one seat remains symbolically empty. The seat where Woody Allen should have sat, but chose not to. And 3,000 miles away, in a basement jazz club that closed years ago but lives on in memory, a clarinet player who happened to be a famous filmmaker played music with friends who cared about the music, not the fame. That was April 3rd, 1978. The night Hollywood celebrated Annie Hall, and the night Woody Allen reminded everyone what actually mattered. The lesson was simple but revolutionary. You can win every prize and still choose to be somewhere else. You can have the world's recognition and still prefer anonymity. You can be offered the spotlight and still choose the ordinary Monday ritual. Because in the end, it is not about what others think you should want. It is about what you actually need to stay human. Stay creative. Stay real. Woody needed Monday nights more than he needed Oscars, so he chose Monday nights. And in that choice, he won something more valuable than any award Hollywood could give him. He won his life back.